Okay, so previous week we started to trade up higher in the beginning of the week, but then when Trump announced to impose 100% tariffs on China, we saw a dump as well, aligning with the technicals reacting from this supply zone. Overall, going through the weekly time frame, I am expecting a little bit downside before possibly seeing some upside this week on the dollar. Of course, this week is going to be heavily independent on the fundamentals, seeing how China reacts to the 100% tariff imposed from Donald Trump. But of course, if you look at the technicals, we are bullish. We tapped inside the demand zone, took some liquidity, and now we swiped the low beautifully, getting a reaction up higher and breaking the fractal bullish. So this could possibly mean that we could see a higher dollar, but overall, the order flow is still bearish and we could see some possible downside still as long as the order flow stays bearish. Now fundamentally, I do see a little retracement up higher on the dollar, trading possibly towards this liquidity high, and possibly even these two liquidity highs. Reason being is because they are appreciating again the dollar a little by little, and they're just seeing it maybe pushing up higher. So aligning it with the technicals, it also does absolutely make sense because we are daily bullish, and we could see that retracement right now trading towards the premium prices, which aligns with all of these liquidity highs. If you look at the daily order flow, yes, this is the overall order flow, but at the moment, the internal order flow or the actual order flow in control are these two demand zones, and especially this demand is now in control. And now, like we saw from the supply, a little push, I'm expecting in the beginning of this week to keep pushing us down lower towards this demand zone, from this demand trade up higher towards all of these highs. Maybe even tap the quarterly level like this before pushing up higher. That's also possible. So going to the 4-hour time frame, I know we are bearish, but we gotta always look at the higher time frame before we take a look at the lower time frame, because right now I already made a decision on the higher time frame that we could possibly start to trade up higher and that there might be a reversal incoming. You gotta know that we're not always going to be continuing the trend down lower. At some point we gotta reverse. Of course, we don't like to predict when we're going to reverse, but if the higher time frame tells us that there is a high chance that we could be pushing up higher in the future, then I would like to believe that so. So looking at the 4-hour, this is also my 4-hour order flow in control. And again, I'm looking to push down lower in the beginning of the week to take out these two liquidity lows. From here, see a fractal change, and then we could trade up higher. If we do not see any fractal, or at least a double fractal, then it could confirm that we push down lower and also take out this liquidity low, tap the monthly level, and possibly trade over this gap so that we then can push up higher. Overall, at the end of the week, so until Friday, on Friday I do expect a higher dollar than the opening that we'll get tonight. So overall, if we would have pressed buy on Monday, let's say, I do see that on Friday we would be in profit, because at the end of the week I would expect us to be in going up higher. But overall, in the beginning, I'm looking at some downside, maybe Monday, Tuesday, maybe even Wednesday, and then I'll look for some upside after we see confirmation, either from this low or this low, of course. So that's my view on the dollar, to still keep pushing up higher towards all of those daily liquidity highs. Of course, my view on this pair might change based on the fundamentals. Let's say a war is starting or something else extreme will happen between China and the US, then I'm of course bearish on the dollar. But right now, this is my view based off the current fundamentals and of course the technicals as well. So as you guys know, I am also inside this EURUSD short, and if you didn't know, now you know. And I was just targeting this low. After this low, I knew we could see a small retracement, but after grabbing liquidity above these highs, maybe even this high, tapping the quarterly level, then I'm looking for a fractal break in order to scale in even more towards this low over here. Overall, you can see that we're kind of impulsing in towards the downside, and I'm now just looking for some liquidity to be grabbed in order to keep on pushing down lower. But let's look at the weekly time frame. You can see, and even a monthly time frame, I want to show you something. We took monthly liquidity here. So for me, yes, the monthly order flow is bullish, which is the month in control. But from some monthly liquidity, we could definitely see a reaction as we are seeing right now, and possibly could even grab some liquidity at the lows. So I'm just going to be careful for that. Looking at the weekly time frame, we do have a supply still open and some more liquidity, but overall we right now grabbed some liquidity at these lows. So I'm going to be very careful when taking any scalings, because from here we can now keep on pushing up higher, kind of continuing like this. Going to the daily time frame, we are also daily structure wise bullish, and we could now see some upside. Now overall the daily order flow is still bearish, so we could definitely see some downside towards that liquidity before then moving up higher, for example towards that weekly supply, and then trading down lower. Now overall, I would say maybe longs are the best after grabbing or swiping this low one more time. For me, this low here, it's not the best low, because as you can see, after grabbing liquidity we immediately start trading up higher, and for me that indicates most of the time that we get an early buyer's swipe, swiping all of these buyers and then seeing the actual move in towards the upside. So going to the 4-hour time frame, you can see that also on the 4-hour you didn't even get an early buyer swipe, you just sold off and now you saw a big reaction. So if we don't see any fractal change, of course we could be pushing up higher, and after we see the daily order flow switch bullish, which is that high, then we could see upside again. As long as this order flow stays in control and we see fractal breaks happen, I think scalings are an option to trade towards this bad low and some more liquidity over here, as well as this overall demand, which then could be pushing us up higher in line with the daily and 4-hour trend. But next week, like I said, because I'm viewing a stronger dollar, I'm also viewing a lower EURUSD. Going to GBPUSD on the weekly time frame first, you can see, did we grab monthly liquidity? We did grab monthly liquidity, as you can see above that high, so again expecting to trade down lower. If we look, we took the monthly liquidity at this high, so then you would like to grab liquidity at the lows, which is that low, and that low possibly. But we only grab liquidity at that low. We then saw a retracement after failing to break this low over here. So we saw a retracement. That most of the time means that we need to grab liquidity at the lows for more fuel in order to then keep on trending up higher, for example. So that's why I'm looking for more downside on GBPUSD next week. Also, the order flow is bearish, and this supply for me could now be pushing price down lower towards these equals. Looking at the daily time frame, I can also see that the daily swing structure is bearish, the daily order flow as well is bearish, and overall we had this trendline liquidity, which we just need to take out. You had the impulsive phase, a little retracement, and now you can also see the impulsive phase in towards these two equal lows, and that's also where my targets are for my trade setups, which I took previous week. I'm still holding them, even though because of the news, even though with the news from Trump, I'm still holding, because for me it's kind of a fake out for them to just continue to trade down lower towards these equal lows. So the trend on the 4 hours is also bearish, and now as you can see, yeah, we're just continuing the order flow bearish. So what am I looking at? Either we just immediately continue to respect the order flow and trade down lower, or we grab some liquidity above these highs here, maybe like just the high of all of this trendline liquidity, tap the quarterly level, and from there, if we see a fractal, I think shorts again are really nice, trading towards those equals again, because that's what I'm looking for. So that really looks really good on GBPUSD, and I might be able to take even more scalings here on GBPUSD. Okay, so let's take my main pairs. So let's go to EURAUD here. So EURAUD on the weekly time frame, you can see that we are bullish. We then saw a retracement into discount prices, into this demand, and from here we saw upside. So then what did we see? A retracement, grabbing liquidity underneath the lows, then swiping the early buyers one more time, because from that liquidity we saw that initial reaction. Then we swiped that initial reaction, swiping early buyers, and now you could trade up higher again. Same thing that I'm looking for on EURUSD, by the way, for that swipe of those early buyers and then seeing the actual move up higher. So let's see. You can see that we are consolidating on the daily though. So it is tricky in my opinion to trade EURAUD because we are such a consolidative pair at the moment. But overall, we should be consolidating up higher towards the highs because that's the end goal. So we took liquidity in this low, we tapped this demand zone, got an early buyer swipe, and now this is your overall demand in control. And I'm looking for a retracement, maybe in towards these levels here, in order to then be pushing us up higher again. So looking at the 4-hour time frame, you can also see that you retraced back into this 4-hour demand, took that liquidity as well. And yeah, now basically this is your 4-hour demand, of course, in control. So we would like to see this whole news push get taken out, grab liquidity underneath this low, basically seeing the fractal break happen, and then we could trade up higher all the way and take A+ long setups. But of course, the chance of seeing that whole news push getting taken out is quite low. So maybe a retracement towards the quarterly level. If we then see some order flow being created, then we could maybe start to look for longs after we see multiple breaks into our upside and we see order flow being bullish, and then we could continue to trade up higher. Overall, not the best trade idea in my opinion on EURAUD because there's no liquidity in this move up, and most of the time you just take the whole move out before actually starting to move. Going to GBPAUD, we saw a massive move into our upside, and it actually was literally half a pip away from my take profit, and then it went straight up to break even. But that's the game, so I'm not mad at all. So looking at the weekly time frame though, we are bullish, and like I said, for all of the weeks basically where I did these weekly outlooks, the order flow is bullish. So yes, we just broke the structure, so we could see a retracement towards discount prices. But for me, as long as the order flow stays bullish, we could see upside towards this liquidity high. So that's also still what I'm viewing. Now, what did we see? Well, we tapped inside this weekly demand. We do still got to keep in mind that we still have this weekly refined zone open, which we didn't yet tap yet. But overall, we tapped the overall demand zone. And from here, also kind of the yearly level, we grabbed liquidity, and we now broke the internal order flow kind of bullish, and now we could continue to trade up higher to maybe take out these highs. So I'm going to be careful because, like I said, we have this demand open, and as you can see, we didn't clearly tap the yearly level. We were near and we already reacted, but overall I do see that we could see 100% a manipulation move, swiping this low, tapping yearly level, tapping inside that daily demand, and then we could trade up higher. Now if I look, you also now took liquidity at these highs at the previous monthly level, so definitely could see a reaction. I would not advise taking any short setups here because everything from weekly to 4-hour time frame shows you that you want to take longs and you want to be aligning your trades with all of the time frames. So I would say either wait for a tap inside this demand, wait for confirmation, we'll see on the 4-hour if that's possible, in order to take longs, or wait for this daily demand, then confirmation, and then take longs. As you can also see, the internal structure is kind of going down, right? So right now with this little pullback, grabbing liquidity, tapping monthly level, we could also just continue to trade down lower inside this demand. So keep that in mind when taking any long setups on GBPAUD. So looking at the 4-hour, this also is my structure here. But as you guys know, keep in mind that this is some internal structure. We now saw a perfect pullback into the premium prices and the monthly level and all of that liquidity. So now we could easily see a reaction down lower in towards the actual yearly level, the demand zone, and from here, if I then see confirmation, that's where I take A+ long setups on GBPAUD. As of now, we also have this massive news push. As you can see, my take profit was at that liquidity point, and it just straight up reversed before tapping that. But overall, yeah, I'm just waiting for this overall news push to get mirrored, to get taken out, take out the low, then from that amount seeing upside. Going over to EURCAD on the weekly time frame, you can see kind of that we respected the weekly order flow here and that we could keep on pushing up higher towards the weekly supply. If you look, you took some weekly liquidity, but you still have weekly supply open, this imbalance candle over here, which I would like to tap before seeing any downside, for example, towards taking out all of these lows. So before I take out or take any shorts, I would like to see the order flow actually clearly breaking, like an actual break, maybe even double break, before shorting towards this trend line low. Right now, I'm seeing upside, of course, together with the order flow to just continue towards that supply. On a daily time frame, you're bullish, and basically, if I look, did we take out the low? We did not take out any of the lows. We took this liquidity here, and basically, oh, it's daily liquidity, of course. And basically, yeah, we could see upside. That's definitely possible, but you have two equal lows here. So if I would advise you to take any long setups, I would advise you to only do that when we take out equal lows, tap this amount, and then you could possibly take a small trade towards, let's say, this bump in the road that we then create. Now, overall, are shorts valid because you took weekly liquidity? You now actually change the order flow bearish with this supply and control, maybe that quarterly and monthly to trade towards the equal lows. That's possible, but not A++. It might be A+, I don't know, but A++ like actual best setup, it is not, because you still have that supply zone open on the higher time frame, which is a very high chance that this could be all manipulation, tricking early sellers into the game, and then seeing manipulation, swiping the high before seeing the actual short towards the equals and maybe even towards these weekly lows. So yeah, be very careful when trading next week. Looking at the 4-hour time frame, we have that we are 4-hour swing bullish. We then also, of course, took liquidity in this low, and then we respected this swing low, and we created bullish order flow. So from this amount, we could definitely continue to trade up higher. Again, same thing goes as what I said on the daily time frame. We do have equals, so be very careful. We could easily see retracement, and from here longs towards this high, because from here you could again trade down lower, because then you would be swing bearish. Overall, I think this is a good setup, catching a small long from that amount, or maybe catching a small short from that overall bigger supply. That for me would be the best setups. As long as we're inside this range, I would not really trade this pair. Going to GBPCAD, I was looking at longs previous week. Why? Well, if you look at the weekly time frame, you clearly are just very bullish for the last couple of years, and I would like to trade towards that liquidity high, right? Just continuing the order flow. Looking at the daily time frame also, we now turned daily bullish again, and this now became my swing high, and I would like to see a break above that high. We failed to break that high 2 times. What does that most of the time mean? So here we failed to get a candle close, so we grab liquidity and need the lows in and tap the demand in order to try again. We then again failed to break that high, so again same thing, we grab liquidity at the lows. You could possibly grab this low as well, but it seems like we already reacted from this liquidity and that monthly level. Of course, you can see how magic they are, and now you could continue to trade up higher. Again, be very careful, because yes, you took out liquidity, but you also made some equals at these lows, and maybe from that quarterly you see a reaction towards those lows before moving up higher again. So be careful when trading EURCAD, of course, but also GBPCAD. So on the 4-hour time frame, this also is my swing, and I would like to trade, of course, towards my swing. So same thing goes as what I said on the daily. We failed to get a candle close above that like swing high, so we grab liquidity more underneath the lows. and tap the monthly level before trying again. Here we failed to break that high, so again we trade down lower to grab liquidity at the lows, tap the monthly level in order to try again. So right now you can also see that this demand is now in control, and from this demand we could see some upside like this, because you also have a lot of liquidity above the high still open. Now keep in mind though that you just have equal lows open, and from that quarterly you could 100% take those out to swipe out all the early buyers and then see some actual upside. So what I would advise you do is see it tap inside of this demand. That's probably going to happen from this level, seeing a reaction. If you then see a clear candle close above the high that will be created and the monthly and quarterly level, that would indicate that you break above it and that you now are ready to trade up higher from this liquidity, and that you normally would not need to take out more liquidity at these lows before moving up higher. So then something like this, a setup here, a buy, would be cleaner than just already buying from this demand. Okay, so that's GBPCAD. Would I advise you to take a short after breaking that high? Of course not. What I would say is after breaking that high, you break this swing structure. So then where would your PVD land? Somewhere around this level, around that level. And then you can see you have equal lows, demand. So then if you break the highs, I would not advise you short, because you would like to trade with a higher time frame, of cour+. So then I would like to wait for a retracement, taking out the lows, tapping this demand, tapping discount prices that we will create, and here again A++ longs trading up higher. But for now, let's see if we can get that double break, and we could continue to trade towards that high, and then seeing something like this. This would be 2 A+ setups basically. Going over to the yen basket, we saw some upside here when Trump announced that tariff imposed, but basically I do see it as a fake out actually. So let me explain. Looking at the weekly, you can see that again we're kind of ranging, but overall we are definitely bearish. If I zoom up even more, that's just overall bearish, right? So for me, we could just easily continue down lower. You got a manipulation here, grabbing a lot of liquidity, and now these two highs fail to break that high here, this high. So again, we need liquidity at the lows. So trading towards this low, I already mentioned it when we were at this high. That's something we could have expected. Now from here, we also tapped this weekly demand. We could 100% see upside to grab some more liquidity, tap this supply in order to continue down lower, or we just continue down lower from that Chile level, for example. So we got to see how we react, and also of course keep in mind the fundamentals. Looking at the daily time frame, we are daily bullish. We are trading inside discount prices. We took liquidity and we tapped demand. So it is making sense technically to trade up higher. You saw consolidation basically, now a big manipulation move, and now maybe a big distribution move, trading out all of these highs. That is 100% possible. Now I would say that we had a big impulse towards the downside because of a new, I don't know what it was, like was it a prime minister? I don't know what it was, but just something new in Japan, who got some power, right? So that's why we saw a dump, because she always talks a bit bad for the yen. So people anticipated bad things, and that's why this is already priced in. Now overall, once we got to this level, which is around the 6,000 level, we saw a reaction. And basically this reaction is also caused by the tariff imposed, because as you know, maybe when there is a lot of uncertainty around the world, then people put their money in the Swiss franc, the dollar, and the yen, of course also gold. Would they put their money into the dollar? No, of course not at the moment, because it is having trouble having trade wars with China at the moment. So people put their money inside the yen, Swiss franc, and gold. So that's why the yen is pumping. Now we gotta see if the war or a trade war is going to escalate, then we'll see the yen pump, of course. When it's nothing, then I just see the initial push from that news event, from the new girl that got at the top, that got the power, well, then from the supply maybe and the yearly level, we could just continue to trade down lower. Okay, so it is fundamentally, but also technically, of course, because we could be trading up higher, but of course we could also be trading up higher, but the fundamentals are going to decide what we're going to do. So again, you also see a refined or two refined demand zones here at the lows. And if I look after grabbing liquidity, yeah, you kind of have like a V-shaped reaction. So maybe after grabbing that liquidity out and tapping maybe that supply, getting confirmation, then I could definitely see some downside. Again, it more so depends on fundamentals at the moment, right? Because we are at a moment that we are heavily relying on the fundamentals because some big events are happening. So we gotta wait and see what's going on. If you would like me to maybe post on my Instagram about the fundamentals, what's going on, maybe update my update channel inside Discord or something around those lines, then make sure to comment it down below and I'll make sure to start doing that. Overall, yeah, this is what I'm looking for on the yen basket. So let's go to Euro yen. Weekly time frame. Weekly is now bullish, and that's also what we expected over here. We then saw at that point when analyzing the market that we had this big manipulative move, grabbing a lot of liquidity, and now we might just be continuing up higher, and that's also what we're doing. So this demand was in control, pushes up higher, and now this demand is in control, and possibly with all of the fundamentals, like just overall fundamentals being very bearish for the yen, we could just tap this demand and continue to trade up higher. Again, if the fundamentals are very good for the yen, we see of course downside towards maybe what? Well, of course, probably towards the discount prices, which is perfectly at this overall big demand zone. And once we tap that, we could then see possible upside. So there are two possible things that could happen, either this and then this, or continuing the order flow already bullish. So on the daily time frame, that's going to be exactly the same. So nothing else to say from my side. I can show you that we have some liquidity at the lows, but overall we know that the yen basket or euro or like yen pairs don't really rely on any liquidity. They heavily rely on order flow, and they're just very bullish overall. So we could just continue to trade up higher. Looking at the 4-hour time frame, I can say that this now was my 4-hour break, and if I look at the premium versus discount from the swing low here in towards the swing high that we created, then I can see this trade I didn't take at all. I was looking to possibly look for longs maybe with that news event from Trump, because I saw it as a fake out, but I wanted to wait for Monday to see like how is the market going to react. So basically what I'm seeing is that we have this liquidity here that we already have taken out. So this liquidity, but we also of course have this liquidity here. So these are points where we could react from. I would say this liquidity would be better because then we're also inside discount prices, and from here we could react. Now if we don't see an immediate reaction, we again could mirror this move up and start to mirror it down lower to grab liquidity in its lows, that monthly level, maybe see a reaction from there. Now overall, we gotta see how price reacts from this liquidity low or these two liquidity lows. If we see some breaks into the upside, I think definitely we could start to retrace again up higher. Okay, going to GJ, we saw a massive push up higher. Overall still respecting this overall weekly supply. We're also bearish. We do have some more liquidity at the lows, but as you know, we are very bullish the last couple of years. From 2010 we have been bullish, so why would we stop being bullish? For me, nothing major happened on why there should be a switch at the moment though. So I would like to maybe continue to trade up higher towards this liquidity high. So going over to the weekly, we're inside this supply zone, and we could react from it, of course. Now overall, if I look at the daily time frame, we're again bearish, but again, like we saw in Euro Yen, this could be a big manipulative move, grabbing liquidity near all of the lows to now just continue the order flow up higher. And that's of course the same thing that I'm looking for. If I look, this is my overall sell before the buy, and what do I see? Kind of consolidation, grabbing liquidity near the low. So that means that this demand zone is actually a strong zone where we could 100% or just have high probability of getting a reaction out of. So first we need to see a tap inside the demand, of course, maybe even that aligns with the discount prices of this new swing that we have that's bullish. Let's see, from the swing low all the way until the swing high, and as you can see, it perfectly aligns with the demand zone. We have liquidity low over here as well. Let's see, this low. So basically what I'm looking for is, yes, we grab liquidity, but I would like to tap that demand, tap discount prices and that liquidity. So I would like to tap this, get confirmation. If we see multiple breaks into the upside, I would like to continue trading GBP up higher. Of course, like I also already mentioned, it also depends on the fundamentals that we get. So looking at my last pair, gold here, as you guys know or not, I don't know if I mentioned it already, but I took an 8.5 RR on gold, causing me to get a nice payout on one of my Finland accounts. But looking at the weekly, you can just see that we're very, very bullish overall, right? And we can just start to continue to trade up higher. Looking at the daily time frame, we again saw a small retracement, and now we could be pushing up higher again. Overall, gold is very, very bullish. And why is gold pumping? Because there are a lot of uncertainties around the world. So whenever the trade war that we have with US and China, whenever it will like escalate, or the ceasefire in Gaza will break by someone who will bomb the other, then we'll see gold again pump up higher. Now what we also see is that we have a reaction here, a little one, and that's because, in my opinion, I think it's because the ceasefire in Gaza, right? So basically that for me could give us a little dumb down lower, grabbing liquidity underneath some lows on the daily time frame before seeing a massive retracement up higher again. So keep that in mind when you want to take gold longs. Overall, yeah, if there is, like, again, if there is uncertainty around the world, like more uncertainty, and we start to break these highs, then again, I would like to advise you to keep on longing gold. There's no reason to short gold at the moment, because fundamentally we just keep on being bullish. So there's absolutely no reason for gold as well to just drop down lower. Okay, so that's my market outlook for this week. I hope you liked it, and whenever you have any questions about these pairs or you would like me to update more on these, make sure to join the Discord, and I'll see you guys next week. Ciao.